Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to another Throwback Thursday with me, Peter, the Master of Hoppets. Today, throwing back with some more Lagunitas, but this time Lagunitas brewed in the States, because last time I did a review of Lagunitas brewed in Europe, and I was massively disappointed. This here is a beer I've also really put in high regard in the past, so it'll be interesting to see what I think today. Although this is 5 months in the bottle. Not super fresh, but this is a bottle of Lagunitas Maximus IPA. Colossal IPA, it says. So this beer, I think I gave it like a 96 or 97 or something back in the day. I loved it. This and Hop Stupid was my favorite Lagunitas beers. As far as I remember. Sucks I also liked a lot, but I got to try that really late. Maybe I didn't appreciate it as much as these. I'm not sure. But I used to drink a lot of Lagunitas back in the day because we got it in Europe at reasonable freshness, and they were often really cheap. Both the bottles and the small bottles here and the bombers. So I'm hoping this American brewed version will be better. But it's a shame. It was packaged on the 25th of February, and we're the 25th of July. So it's exactly 5 months to the day today. And I think that's past its prime for most IPAs. But I saw this in Sweden as Systembolaget when I was there before going home from the island of Bornholm. You have to cross Sweden to go there if you take the route we did. And they had this in the shop, in the Systembolag, the government-run shop. And I was like, let's get some Lagunitas and also some other stuff. But yeah, this is a massive 9% double IPA. You don't see, I think some modern brewers these days would even call 9% like triple IPA. It says that it's a colossal double IPA that's smack full of Simcoe and Cascade hops. And then they use malted barley paired with malted wheat, biscuity Munich malt, and crystal malt from England. And it's massively dry hops. And it's got an IBU of 60, which seems rather low for a beer of this stature. But that was all the, 60s plenty. But the IBU wars back then, like people wanted more. Like I want more, like 100, give me more. Like Mickler made, I think it was maybe a bit of a joke when they made 1,000 IBU. Just like theoretically, this beer is 1,000 IBU, because IBUs are also like a bit like nonsense. It's really, the IBU makes sense if you put, like if you tasted beer in the past and you think of beer being bitter when you were like when I was getting into beer. You can kind of follow because you read the numbers back then. Then you try a beer with the same IBU content, but it's not from whole leaf hops or from pellets, and the bitterness is different. Like bitterness is so different than just that number. There's so much more to it. So that's why a lot of modern West Coast, they seem less bitter, although they're like 60 IBUs, because most of them are like hop extract that's super clean and pure. So it's just like a slight clean bitterness, not like leafy bitterness. But let's check out some Maximus. So pours a slightly orange-hued golden color in the glass. It's actually pale. It's not like as rich and dark as some old school West Coast IPAs. And this is a West Coast double IPA. And nice soft carbonation white head. Let's check out the aroma on Maximus for the first time in probably like 10 years. So this instantly reminds me of getting beer from the States back in the day. This was how I thought like American, like hoppy beer was supposed to smell in the past. Because I never had like really fresh American hoppy beer until like Europeans and whatnot. Like when I was getting into beer, heavily hopped IPAs and stuff in Denmark was very new. People were looking to America and taking inspiration from America, making hoppy beers. And like some of the, like when we got some of the American ones home, before really a lot of Danes were doing a lot of things with hops and also around Europe. Like this was the early days of craft beer, like 2009 to 2011, maybe 10. 11, I think we're catching on. But like when it started in 2004, not too many people were looking to the States, 2003, 2004. Then around the 9s, people were starting to. But I just remember thinking most of the time, like American IPAs are so much better than the Danish ones. They're so hoppy and intense. And then one of the things I also remembered was that they had this aroma. tea leafy, sweet, syrupy hop notes, which I loved back then because it was just intensity of hops. Now I know that that's also part of the age profile of hoppy beer. And I'm getting loads of that, like slightly oxidative, almost like sweaty gym sock notes and black tea. It smells really freaking old school. Like it smells like sugar coated like blood orange and grapefruit with black tea, a bit of pine, but also like some really sticky hash. Like I think often if you compare like dankness in IPAs, I think the modern ones smells like kush, like really fruity weed. Whereas I think a lot of the old ones, they smell like hash, like this dank, hashy note. And then like lots of orange as well, tangerine, sweet citrus, a little bit of a floral note. And then underneath, there's like this caramel sweetness and everything. It smells really damn old school. Let's try it. 5 months old Lagunitas Maximus. Cheers. Yeah. I mean, it's not bad. I much prefer I think it's our freshness thing here as well. But man, it's sweet. Like there is a lot of lingering sweetness in this. Like 9% is excessive. Like this, like the 10-12% triple IPAs these days, like that's also excessive. But it feels bitter. It's definitely got a nice scraping bitter bite. Like, and it's that like leafy plant matter bitterness. So much orange, so much grapefruit in this one. Those classic West Coast hop flavors where you're thinking like grapefruit, sweet citrus, drying pine, but then there's just like loads of caramel malts, loads of sweetness, and it's not like that even like tramples over the hoppiness. Like all the fruit flavors like up there up front, and there's like just a fucking swarm of malt flavor just coming in like sweet malt and just like overtaking the entire like fruitiness of the beer. And then what you're left with is like really sweet caramel, rich malt, and then some of those like older hop flavors, like just drying, bitter, leafy, oily notes. Which, you know, is not how these beers often are when they're really fresh. They're more fruity. That was why they were really popular. You know, they had loads of fruit flavor and bitterness. I think the sweetness is just a tad too much in it. It's not a bad beer, but it's definitely not a 97. And also take in mind, like this is the age that it is. It's quite old, but it feels, if we think of the Lagunitas I had on Bonhon, it feels vastly different. It feels much more like what I remember drinking these kind of beers back in the day. Whereas the European Brewed version was like, what is this? This is so macro. This doesn't necessarily feel macro. This feels a lot like how a lot of these IPAs were. We would get them at like 5-6 months, something like that. And this was the experience. And that was awesome because it felt like we were drinking really awesome hoppy beer that was really intense compared to what we were used to. No touch of alcohol, which is nice. And then it's like, otherwise the fruity flavors are mainly like this orange, grapefruity flavor with touches of floral and pine. I mean, it's not a bad IPA, but it's like, I can't really completely fairly judge this because it's a 5 months old bottled. But like, I'm not like super, I would not drink this again. Like, I'm not super stoked on it, I must say, but just because the crystal malts are too much. Like, this is why you should be sparing with crystal malts and sweetness as well in IPAs. Like, you need to strike that balance. I'm sure the balance is there, maybe better when it's fresh. I would love to try this really fresh. But like, this is just like, I much prefer the more modern West Coast approach, or like a hybrid between the two, where it's not like just so overbearingly oily. But I really think that's just due to an age thing as well. Like a lot of the top notes you get from dry hopping are probably lost a bit by now. This is a great showcase why drinking IPAs that are around this age are not as interesting and vibrant as drinking them really fresh. Right now, it is a bit cloying. Like drinking a whole bottle of this would be tough because it's so rich on that sweetness. But yeah, in terms of grade for the Lagunitas Maximus, Bear in mind, this is an old bottle, so this grade might not be exactly fair. But yes. What are we gonna go? Maybe like an 85, 83, something like that. Like early to mid 80s. I'm not super stoked on this. It's just not what I really enjoy these days. Like if you gave me like this beer years ago and gave me a Pilsner, and maybe the same freshness, I would be like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me that double IPA. Like, yeah, it's crazy intense. I love it. These days, pills, please. That's how palates change. But this is still fun. I mean, but this was what I was actually also expecting. Really rich, crystal malty, bitter beer. Although the bitterness in this is more balanced than in some really old school examples where the bitterness was just over the top. But this is nice bitterness. This is longing. It's not too much. Just like nice longing. And again, like slightly plant mattery bitterness. But yeah, fun to try it. Lagunitas Maximus again. If you guys had this beer in recent times, let me know what you thought of it. And as always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in some West Coast double IPA from way back when. And see you guys in another Throwback Thursday.